Hi everyone, it's Raskul here again. But today we've got a very special edition question and answer session for you with none other than the inimitable Lolliedieb, aka Wilke Trei, who is in charge of the algorithm changes for Beam. Recently we had a community survey go out asking some questions in regards to the algorithm changes in that upcoming hard fork at block 777777. And what we're going to do today is relay these questions to Lolly. In the links below, you can see the previously recorded presentation that Wilke did. And these questions are pretty much an extension from that presentation. A couple of questions which the community thought that hadn't been answered fully. So we're going to get cracking and get right into that, if that's okay. How are you today, Wilke?
Oh, perfectly fine. Yeah, had a good start to the day so far with our testnet already forking to BeamHashIII and, well, all of the 5.0 release. So we're now having this testnet kicking and running. It's really a pleasure to see that, and looking forward what the developers will do with it.
Yeah, we were all up early to watch.
Looking forward for the mainnet, of course, too. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So ongoing tests are happening as we speak with the developers, testing all the fab new features on the testnet, ready for the hard fork incoming. So what we're going to do is get right into the questions here today. So the first question come from the community was, what are the technical changes from BeamHashII to BeamHashIII?
Oh, well, plenty of detailed stuff in the algorithms changed. Well, in fact, it's even no more real equihash. BeamHashII was still some kind of derivative of equihash with some, well, already not minor changes, but now BeamHashIII is completely out of that structure. Okay, the structure is still a little bit the same, but it's already quite far away from the original concept. To break it down into a few parameters, I would say we have doubled the required memory bandwidth, as well on GPUs as for ASICs, so for everyone. And also we doubled the required amount of memory to compute it in both fashions, as well for a reasonable solver as for a kind of minimal solver. So because for ASICs, it's always interesting how what's the minimum, what's the bare minimum you can use to solve it kind of efficiently. And before we were between 1.2 and 1.5 gigabytes for minimal solver for BeamHashII, and now we doubled that between 2.5 and 3 gigabytes for minimal solver. And that was kind of important for us to make it clear that it's not possible to mine BeamHashIII with a 7 nanometer single chip ASIC.
Sounds good. So basically you're looking at what, 4 gigabyte graphic cards are going to be required?
Yeah, the ideal solver even requires 5 gigabytes, but it will work well enough on 4 gigabytes. And if you put a little effort into the coding, you even can do it on 3 gigabytes. Mm-hmm. But it's technically impossible to go below 2.4 or 2.5.
And how is
that's even if you get an ideal device really only built for this algorithm, you can't go below that barrier.
And how is the efficiency then changing from BeamHashII to BeamHashIII? Is there a big difference in power draw for the same amount of solves, or have we?
No, at least not for the reference miner. We yet have to wait for the third-party ones. But the reference miner for BeamHashII and 3 requiring approximately the same amount of power. What is quite good because it's already a way down from the old BeamHashII and also from original equihash. So we're more power saving than this. And yeah, you need to consider that we're filling twice the amount of memory now with random data in the beginning when we start the algorithm, and so it's already quite an achievement to not increase the power draw on that phase of the algorithm.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, according to conclusion, BeamHashIII will be single chip ASIC resistant, but multi-chip ASIC friendly, which sounds a bit confusing to some. How is this good for GPU miners? Will BeamHashIV transition into a completely ASIC friendly algo, and is this just a transitional proof of work algo change? Lots of questions in there, actually.
Yeah, it's more than one. First of all, to reduce the confusion, yeah, for a single chip ASIC, you need to be able to put the whole algorithm into one chip. So in our case, it would need to have a small compute part in the chip, as well as having all the memory on chip. So this is like, for example, the Equihash ASICs for Zcash work. They just have 100, 200 megabytes of on-chip memory. So that's like the cache on your CPU or GPU. This is kind of the same for BeamHashIII, but here you would need to store over 2.5 gigabytes, and that would be a very huge chip if you build it in 7 nanometers, and that's plainly economically not feasible at the moment. The larger the chip gets, the more extreme your yield rate is when you produce a thing, and yeah, so it's very hard to build that. On the other hand, a multi-chip ASIC, that just means, okay, you've got a compute part and have the memory, for example, on a separate chip. And a multi-chip ASIC is something you can almost build for every proof of work. When it's memory hard, accompany the compute chip with memory chips. If it's very compute hard and requires just a lot of chip space, then you can try to put different parts of the algorithms to multiple chips, and they then need to communicate. So there is no thing like real multi-chip ASIC resistancy. It's almost impossible.
And there won't be a BeamHashIV, will there? We're settling on BeamHashIII, aren't we?
Yeah, that's the other point. We currently don't plan to change BeamHashIII to BeamHashIV. And well, will it get more ASIC friendly? Well, over time it will, because when new manufacturing processes pop up and the structure size for ASIC producing goes down, then you can put more memory on it. Yeah, if Moore's law is still active, I'm not sure, but then you can estimate, okay, the number of memory you can put to such a chip will double each 2 or 3 years. And so there will be some point in time where it gets feasible to make BeamHashIII a BeamHashIII single chip ASIC, and then it will easily outpower GPUs. But this is quite far ahead. Currently, I won't estimate to that happen within the next 3 or 4 years.
So if and when that does happen, what sort of advantage of ASICs would have over GPUs in terms of say it was feasible, and it was and some manufacturer went on and built the multi-chip ASIC to mine Beam? What advantages in terms of power, in terms of hash rate, might you expect from that multi-chip?
For multi-chip ASIC, the benefit in speed won't be so large, because we designed BeamHashIII to utilize the bandwidth of the memory chips on a GPU pretty well. They are kind of a multi-chip construction, yeah, with memory chips and a compute chip. So what you can expect is if such a device will be built, then the compute chip can be made smaller than a GPU is. So it's likely that it can be built a little bit cheaper, and also with less energy consumption. Let's say approximately an advantage to, well, a factor of 2 or 3, let's say, but without having a large speed advantage. And also, well, these are specialized devices versus GPUs that are kind of mass market stuff. So I don't expect them to be much cheaper than a GPU is. Just like if you look currently to BeamHash ASICs for mining Ethereum, those are also multi-chip ASICs. And for them, you see, okay, they cost kind of the same as a GPU, but they are having approximately same speed for a similar price GPU, but then are more energy efficient. So I personally must say this is a scenario I actually would like to see because, well, those devices are then,
better, yeah.
Yeah, it strengthens our network. Secondly, they are not fast enough to push out the GPUs immediately, so they can run for a while in parallel, and the transition will be rather smooth. And the last thing is, of course, well, GPU vendor, ASIC vendors also want to make money. Yeah, that's all they do. So if someone really decides to create a multi-chip ASIC for Beam, that will be he sees enough value in Beam. And he will only do that if it's economically feasible, and that would be kind of a positive sign for the Beam economics.
Absolutely. I suppose it's like anything that is mass produced for one specific purpose. They want to make it feasible to go to market, that it's affordable, plus making the, as you say, the ASIC manufacturers are looking for the profit. But
yes, right now, the only network I'm really aware of is BeamHash that has multi-chip ASICs. So seeing multi-chips on Beam would lift up Beam mining very lot up in the ladder. So
absolutely. So you've stated this is the very last planned hard fork algo change. If in the future we need to make a semi-planned algo change in order to add some new features, go stag and the like, will it keep BeamHashIII even if you have a good opportunity to improve or change it?
I would say in a case it's not broken, we wouldn't change BeamHashIII very much, because every time you change something, yeah, that always also gives new opportunity to make mistakes.
It's extra work. So when we have such a roadmap as we have to be bringing all the features that we have on a roadmap, it makes sense to my mind anyway. It makes sense to settle on this part, so we can focus on the other parts more importantly. So
there are things, well, when we see that something doesn't work as we did expect it, or well, not really unexpected, but in a way we don't like it, then maybe we change something. But I don't think we will change something that isn't broken, because I believe BeamHashIII is also fine for running with GhostDeck, for example. So there's no real reason to break it. Only thing I could imagine, for example, if we see, okay, our network difficulty increases so much that our nonce range is not large enough, yeah, then it could happen that we will change that in order to allow more nonces also. But yeah, that's the only thing I can imagine right now. Well, of course, bug fixes, but
absolutely.
Don't think so.
So the next question might be in hindsight. Would you choose, or why didn't you choose, a mining algorithm that's easy for large-scale Bitcoin miners to jump off Bitcoin and mine Beam for a network boost? Or would that leave room for centralizing Beam's mining with a sudden power shift?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, right now that would mean dropping off our complete mining community that are almost all GPU miners, and replace them by Bitcoin miners. So from community perspective, I won't like that, because, well, we now generically growth into the situation we have, and dropping them all off that quickly is not a good idea.
I think our
Other thing, of course, is network security. When you share exactly the same proof of work scheme with a much larger network, you're always running into the risk of 51% attacks. Yeah, because it's easily then to shift from the large proof of work over to the smaller cap coin. So I think we can be very happy to have a unique proof of work that's not shared by other coins, because it makes hash rate too easily movable. And yeah,
I think we've also been evident that we're very community minded with our mining community. We like to hear what they've got to say, and I mean the way that you've gone about changing the algorithm is pretty much dedicated to all the feedback and all the responses we got from the mining community. So yeah, definitely. The next question, there was some sort of grey area in your presentation, which a couple of community members had asked this question, and they're wondering, are we working with some ASIC manufacturer already, and when do you think the first ASICs will be on pre-sale?
No, we're not directly working with some, so we don't plan to release an ASIC ourselves or with a close cooperation. Of course, we had some let's say personal contact. So I personally have spoken with some ASIC manufacturers to get some feedback on the proof of work. Well, and most said, well, we can't do that right now, but later on we maybe can do so. Yeah, so we of course try to contact the experts in the proof of work domain when we introduce something new to make really sure that we do build something properly. But that doesn't include ASIC people only. Yeah, when do I expect that? Let's say for single chip ASIC, I don't expect that before the next halving. So that will be in 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. And from that point, it will be, in 3 to 4 years, it will be technically feasible to do so. Question is always, is it economically feasible? We don't have a glass ball here, so we don't know what the price of Beam will be. In particular, when we have that halving exactly there and the proof of work rewards half again, well, they will only release an ASIC then when it's worth doing so. So yeah, if I need to guess, then I would say 4 to 5 years.
Yeah,
of course.
There's a lot of organic growth yet to occur with the technology. I mean, we've only just implemented one of the biggest parts of the Beam network recently in the atomic swaps, and we're looking towards the hard fork upcoming for the next biggest part. And the roadmap has many of these pegs that we have to reach before we can say we've got a final full product, if you like. So yeah, in that sense, maybe what, 4 or 5 years or so.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. If we see ASICs before that point, then they're likely multi-chip ones. And as said, in that case, we but to see that, we would need a kind of explosion in the Beam economics. So if that happens earlier than we expect, then it would actually be a good news for the GPU miners, because they right now can fill up their bags and later on profit from the better prices. So,
and how would a multi-chip ASIC differ from, say, a bitstream on an FPGA?
It doesn't differ that much. It's just you have the FPGA program versus bitstream versus a chip that does exactly the same function, but hard-coded. So that doesn't differ so much.
And we probably anticipate that the FPGAs are really more expensive than what you would expect a multi-chip ASIC to be built at. I mean, these things aren't cheap.
Yeah, because they need to be much more flexible. than an ASIC is. Producing a really tiny chip of, let's say, the size of your fingertip is often much more cost efficient than producing an FPGA, which is a quite complicated product. And same time, it's not really a mass product. And this is what you also see in. There are some FPGAs out there that have features like a GPU, so with HBM memory and a lot of that, and so they would be able to mine BeamHashIII, of course, but they often cost 4 to 5 times what a GPU with similar capacities costs. So I don't expect we will see much FPGA miners on our network.
And you had that in mind when you designed the algorithm, didn't you? It was as you keep saying.
It was not really meant to break FPGAs, but it was meant to utilize GPUs well. And I think that's something we achieved. That said, the algorithm itself is not completely ASIC resistant. In the moment you can build an ASIC, it will be more powerful than a GPU, but that doesn't mean it's easy to build this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, we've come to the very last question, which I'm going to throw out there, but it's not really relevant to the technical side. But it was asked, so I will put it to you, if you don't mind. How the team responds to the complaints of investors or holders about the value of Beam, because the value of Beam is, as this community member sees, underestimated, and they see on some third-party platform the prices of the private sales were published to get us up and running, and they're wondering whether more partnerships will be added or whether the foundation will be burning any of their rewards.
Okay. That's interesting. Did really had a private sale except for what happened before the mainnet launch? I don't think so. I mean, before the mainnet started, there was kind of a private investors round, but I don't believe that prices were actually published. I don't know what the question is referring to. Yet, I personally must say I didn't see the last bigger price dump coming as well. Else I maybe would sit now on a larger beam stack than I do by selling before and rebuying now. Well, it did surprise me myself a little bit, and not in a positive way. So I would agree it's currently undervaluated. But well, that's my personal opinion. It's always a little bit hard to estimate what's a fair price. You only can compare it to other projects and see, okay, what's their price point. Yet we of course care of the price. Also in the Beam Foundation we care about, because the higher the price, the more fuel we have for development, for spending money for corporations and co-projects, because that's the next step we need to do. Once we got a stable Beam platform, a technical platform, we need to extend the actual use of it. So we need to fund projects that wants to do cool stuff with Beam. And so, well, I don't really see a point in burning beams, because if we just now would burn the stack, we hope that wouldn't have much effect on the market because it's not exposed to the market. Other way around, now buying something, on the one hand, I would say we refrain from manipulating the price, and on the other one, that of course would kind of really heavily touch our fuel we have for funding the development. So I'd rather see that money we just now got spent for further developing Beam, and well, more partnerships, of course. That's always something possible, and we of course hope for many people using Beam in the future. So I'm quite sure the Beam Foundation will not buy back beams to burn it. In fact, on the long term, it will rather be the other way around, that the Beam Foundation will sell beams. And I already can hear some people crying, oh no, they're selling their beams, they're not believing in the project. But exactly the opposite is kind of the case. It was always meant to not be held by some foundation members. It was meant to be spent for development, for corporations, for doing cool stuff with it. And especially if you look on the long term, let's say, how can Beam look like in 10 years? You don't want a single investor or part of the foundation sitting on large piles of Beam and control a large part of the money. Instead, you rather would hope that it's well spread among people. So I think on the long term, when it's not founders reward, it's this what was the name for it? The treasury. Yeah, when that is depleted, you rather want it to be in many hands, and you want it to be spent on, and well, spent for something reasonable, spent for something useful. And right now, this is the development of the technical platform.
The purpose of the foundation is to encourage the community growth. So you know, it would be futile to just you know, burn all these beam to what end? We wouldn't be able to provide the community with the things that they require. For example,
I mean, of course, when you cut a lot of a large share of the total emission controlled by a single entity, then it's easier to manipulate the price and to keep it up. We have seen certain projects where this is the case. And maybe that would be good for the short-time investors right now. For me personally, it would also be good if Beam is mooning. Yeah, I'm sitting also on a small pile of Beam. But I think on the long term, that's no generic growth. And on the long term, the strategy we have is by not manipulating the price, neither up nor down. Yeah, it's more, missing the word now, sustainable.
Sustainable. Yeah. So to round up on the questions today, I think I hope that the community have had the answers to the questions that they've put to us, and some reassurance as well, because being a GPU miner myself, I want to continue mining Beam for as long as I possibly can. And I think what you've put together, and seeing, like you said this morning, the testnet forked, and all these new features which are now being tested are coming onto the mainnet. It's quite an exciting time. So we're looking forward to the consensus upgrade, the hard fork, which should be, we're estimating what, end of June? Not that long away now. Should be great.
That's right.
Should be great. I can't wait to see these new wallets come into play. At 5.1, I think we've both seen some spoilers of how they're going to look, and they've been posted about in some of the articles we've put. So we're really looking forward to the evolution of Beam. And thank you very much, Wilke, for joining me today. I think that
thank you very much for setting this all up here.
Very valuable.
For your time.
Thank you. All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.